All right, Mickey 17, it is a masterpiece. Bong Joon Ho is a cinematic genius, and if you loved Snowpiercer and Parasite like I did, then you should rush out and see this on the biggest screen you can. Boom, review done. Oh, hey, you stuck around. All right, let's talk Mickey 17. Right off the bat, this is definitely one of those not for everyone movies. This is not a straightforward four-quadrant people pleaser. This movie is jam-packed with an opinion and a perspective on the human condition. And I imagine some will feel personally attacked by Mickey 17. None of this should come as a surprise. Bong Joon Ho's films have always been an analysis of the world around us, usually with biting, bitter truths about capitalism, colonialism, classism, and fascism. All the isms, really. I'll probably touch on some of these isms as I go through the review, but I also gotta say this film is so densely packed with themes, clever analyses of where humankind finds itself today, and vicious, hilarious satire, that I will leave most of that to smarter people than me to break it all down. Already, I've come across 2,000-word articles that break down the significance of sauce in the film, while I'm over here just trying to make sure I say Bong Joon Ho correctly. Frankly, this is one of those movies where you're just astonished that any studio anywhere today would be willing to drop $120 million on a piece of art like this. The fact that it made it through the Hollywood grinder and still remains so true to the artist's vision is a gift to cinephiles. This, of course, is the classic Tinseltown tradition of cutting a blank check for an in-demand artist who, let's say, win Oscars for Best International Feature, Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. John Baker, I'll be very curious to see what you do with your blank check. For any artist, this is usually that once-in-a-lifetime moment where you can realize your most crazed, most outlandish dream. And here, Bong does not disappoint. He absolutely swings for the fences with his adaptation of Edward Ashton's 2022 novel, Mickey 7. He jokes in interviews that he changed it to 17 so he could kill Mickey 10 more times. The story, and there is a lot of it, I'm gonna keep the synopsis tight. The more you let this movie surprise you, the better. Follows Mickey Barnes, who after a failed business venture owes a whole lot of money to some very bad men. He attempts to flee his earthly problems by hopping on a colonizing ship bound for the ice planet Niflheim. This mission is led by a failed politician who has turned to the church to retain his power. His name is Kenneth Marshall, and he is played by Mark Ruffalo, and his doting wife, Ilfa, played by Toni Collette. In Mickey's desperation to escape certain death on Earth, he agrees to become an expendable, which also guarantees death. A whole lot of terrible, painful deaths. As Mickey later admits, he should have read the fine print. The cast all turn in phenomenal performances. Not just the leads, but all the supporting cast too. All the way down to the characters with just a couple of lines. Bong shows an unwavering vision and an innate sense of tone, bringing genius-level performances from everyone. Which honestly blows my mind, as the challenges of working with English actors when English is not your first language has stymied many other directors. Everyone in the cast delivers. Toni Collette as Ilfa, Mark Ruffalo's enabler and paramour, Stephen Yeun as Mickey's sometimes pal, who just keeps failing up, cruising on his charm and good looks, and Naomi Ackie as Mickey's loving and fiercely loyal partner. They're all hilarious, and the movie gives them plenty of space to shine. But this movie really belongs to Mark Ruffalo and Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson has proven that he is an absolute powerhouse of a film actor. From his blockbuster beginnings in Twilight and Harry Potter franchises, to his years in the indie scene with films like Good Time, The Lighthouse, and High Life. Another very effective, troubling, and evocative sci-fi art house film. I recommend you check it out if that's your thing. To his return to high-minded blockbusters like Tenet and The Batman, Pattinson has become one of the best and most interesting actors working today. I loved him in The Batman, all coiled rage with an open wound for a soul, yet all played with subtlety and nuance. Obviously, the man has incredible taste and has been very smart aligning himself with some of the best directors of the 21st century. Here, his sad sack underdog Mickey Barnes gets a few different decanted 3D printed versions, but the lion's share of the runtime is spent with the 17th and 18th versions of Mickey. Pattinson's performance is a vulnerable, raw nerve. With one version, a guilt-ridden, low self-esteem, bumbling outcast, and the other, a rage-filled go-getter determined to solve all his problems with violence. It's a testament to his craft and skill that these two are so easily differentiated, with their general demeanor, how they carry themselves, and their different voices. Apparently borrowed from Gen X heroes Ren and Stimpy.
I'm smart, you're stupid.
Mark Ruffalo delivers one of my absolute favorite performances of his, with his deeply insecure, narcissistic, and power-hungry politician turned religious figure, Kenneth Marshall. Although the character is an absolute buffoon and definitely the source of some of the biggest laughs in the film, Mark nevertheless also finds the dark, all too human pathos that drives the man. And we feel a violent undercurrent. And just how dangerous this man can be when his particular worldview gets challenged. Does this sound familiar? Now, I think this is important to remember. This film was written in 2021 and only finished shooting in January of 2023. And both Bong and Mark insist that this character was more based on various dictators and overblown politicians throughout history. And there's no way that Bong could have predicted way back in 2021 where we might end up with politics in 2025. But let's just say this film very much meets the moment that we find ourselves in 2025. Mickey 17 is satire at its finest, grappling with both timely and timeless themes of the quintessential failings of human nature. Our hubris, our desire for power, our myopic casting of ourselves as the main character, and our inability to move past all the guilt and shame we assign ourselves, even if it doesn't have any grounding in reality. The film itself is gorgeous, with clever and inventive sci-fi, and it feels like every dollar of the budget is on screen. Set design is striking, feeling both expansive in its world building and claustrophobic on the colony ship. And while the creepers, the alien race that the colonists come up against, can still veer occasionally into that CGI uncanny valley, the creatures have personality, even as they embody that human fear of other, and are executed well in terms of storytelling. Now, Mickey 17 builds itself as a comedy, so the big question is it funny? Comedy, of course, is subjective, but I gotta admit, I laughed my ass off. We're in a weird place with film comedies these days, where they're just not getting made, or they're under the guise of something else. And with people being perceived as so divided these days, I think the studios struggle to find any comedies that they think will actually perform for all audiences. Mickey 17 doesn't even try to be a comedy for all audiences. This is a satire through and through. And while I found it to be one of the funniest comedies I've seen in a long time, your mileage may vary. Personally, I love this level of comedy. Mickey 17 has some hilarious visual gags, like the 3D printer that keeps hitching when it's printing out the latest version of Mickey, mixed with biting, cutting, hilarious satire that sends up the ridiculousness of what it's like to live in the 21st century. And I think Bong scored an absolute home run here. I'm giving Mickey 17 5 out of 5 stars. I love this movie, and it'll probably be in my top 10 list at the end of the year. Sure, you could nitpick a few flaws. It gets a little bogged down in the middle with various relationship hijinks. The CGI can be a little dodgy, and the film is so overstuffed with themes and ruminations on the human condition that it is impossible to unpack it all in one viewing. But for me, this movie hits all my personal cinematic boxes. This is a film I will happily revisit again and again over the next few years, and will probably take something new from each viewing. That a movie like this, insightful, cutting, absurd, and delightfully hilarious and brave, even exists in today's cinematic landscape is a gift to us cinephiles. And I want to give a big shout out to whoever greenlit this film at Warner Brothers for footing the bill and taking a risk on a wild film like this. Some people are not going to care for this film. The comedy is just not up their alley, or satire just isn't their jam. Some people are going to actively hate on this film, and that's also understandable. I think it can be a real challenge for people to look in the mirror and be brutally honest about what we see. For me though, Mickey 17 will be a classic piece of cinema and will live on with cinephiles for decades to come, even if it doesn't make its money back. I'm looking at you, Blade Runner. Like I said in the intro, if you loved Snowpiercer and Parasite, run, don't walk, and see this on the biggest screen you can. I saw it in IMAX and I highly recommend. All right, I gotta bounce. Thanks for watching Gen X Movie Reviews. Be sure to like and subscribe, or don't. And hit me up in the comments. Let me know which box office bomb became a classic in your eyes. Later, skaters.